I'm just a rock chick.
I would describe my music and my sound as Avril.
It's the best damn thing.
Welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast, a facts and trivia-based podcast about Canadian pop singer Avril Lavigne. I'm your host, Andrea DiFrancesco. In this bonus edition of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast, we're going to discuss some of the latest events that have happened, including the release of the Greatest Hits album, Avril's appearance at Paris Fashion Week, her appointment as a member of the Order of Canada, and a smash performance at the Glastonbury Festival. Here's the latest news that's happened with Avril since our last episode. The Greatest Hits compilation album was released on June 21st. It contains 20 songs spanning across all 7 of Avril's albums with a running time of 1 hour and 10 minutes. The Let Go tracks are the remastered versions from the album's 20th anniversary edition, while the remaining tracks were uploaded in Dolby Atmos lossless quality. The booklet contains a few new photos and a brief thank you message from Avril. The album was released digitally via streaming as well as released physically on CD and 2 different vinyls, a black edition as well as a special green edition. Autographed numbered vinyls were also made available via Premier Collectibles. The album debuted at number 76 on the Billboard 200 Albums chart and number 8 on the Billboard Vinyl Albums chart. It also charted at number 7 on the UK iTunes Albums chart. It sold around 12,900 copies in the US in its first week of release, with 7,600 being pure sales. It charted at number 13 on the pure sales chart. Additionally, Avril re-entered the Billboard Artist 100 chart at number 38. Additionally, new lyric videos were uploaded to Avril's YouTube channel for Girlfriend, When You're Gone, Keep Holding On, Complicated, and Skater Boy. Sales certifications for some of Avril's singles were also updated from the RIAA, Girlfriend being 7 times platinum, Complicated and What the Hell being 4 times platinum, Skater Boy being 3 times platinum, My Happy Ending, When You're Gone, and Here's to Never Growing Up all being 2 times platinum, and Smile being platinum. On June 21st, Avril also brought out Youngblood as a surprise guest during her set at the Pink Pop Festival in the Netherlands to perform I'm a Mess. On June 22nd and June 23rd, Avril brought out Simple Plan as a surprise guest to sing their song Addicted during her set at the Hurricane and Southside festivals in Germany. On June 24th, Avril attended the Iris Van Herpen Haute Couture Fall-Winter 2024-2025 fashion show in Paris only 2 hours after arriving from Germany. An article was written by Vogue detailing Avril's experience at the show with a photo diary from Avril. In the article, she said, I love to go extra for a fashion show and really experiment with new hairstyles and more experimental makeup looks, and I'm willing to try anything wild and out there clothing-wise. It's all about having an open mind. She also attended the shows for Tamara Ralph and Elie Saab during the same week as part of Paris Fashion Week. On June 27th, it was announced that Avril will be appointed as a member of the Order of Canada, which is a Canadian state order and the second highest honor for merit in the system of orders, decorations, and medals of Canada after the Order of Merit. In a media statement, the Governor-General said, The Order of Canada recognizes individuals who have made positive and lasting impacts on communities here in Canada or who have brought honor to our country abroad. An article by the CBC states Avril was appointed a member to mark both her career success and her work supporting people with serious illnesses and disabilities. The Governor-General said she paved the way for female-driven punk rock music and continues to do so today. A ceremony is expected to happen later this year. On June 29th, Avril performed at the Bedford Summer Sessions in Bedford, UK, and brought out Femme as a special guest during her set to perform All the Small Things by Blink-182. On June 30th, Avril played the other stage at the Glastonbury Festival in the UK to a crowd of 70,000 people and received rave reviews. She wore a custom ensemble with the Union Jack, designed by Ashton Michael for the occasion. He posted pictures of the outfit on his Instagram, writing, Avril Lavigne performing at Glastonfest in custom Ashton Michael was one for the books. Such a rad moment to create this look for such an incredible festival. A nod to OG UK punk culture sprinkled with Avril energy, completed with classic Ashton Michael aesthetic. On July 6th, Avril revealed she had dyed the middle and ends of her hair bubblegum pink. On July 11th, she appeared on the cover for Lady Gum magazine and discussed her career as well as her advice to new artists. She mentioned enjoying music by new acts like Chappelle Roan, Renee Rapp, and Sabrina Carpenter, as well as how she would like to design a line of punk-inspired home decor. And she concluded the European leg of the Greatest Hits tour at the Mad Cool Festival in Madrid, Spain on July 13th. The tour is scheduled to resume on August 12th in Toronto, Canada. So as you can see, lots of exciting stuff to discuss there. But before we get into it, I just want to briefly mention that I celebrated my birthday recently. And I just wanted to kind of let you know what I did for my birthday. That was like the Avril related parts of my birthday. I definitely had a very Avril birthday because my husband got me the 2 Avril Funko Pops that exist. He got me, as part of my birthday present, he got me the 2 Avril Funko Pops, the Skater Boy one and then the Let Go album inspired one. And I mean, it's just such a, like, if you're an Avril fan, you have to kind of almost like, even if you're not a Funko Pops fan, you kind of almost have to have these in your collection. My husband is a much bigger collector of Funko Pops than I am, but I do have some of other figures that, like, over the years, just every so often, if there's one that I really wanted, I would get the Funko Pops, but I'm not like a huge collector of them. But I honestly think if you can get your hands on these, even if you're not like a Funko Pops collector, really, I think if you're an Avril collector or just an Avril fan, like, it's almost like a must-have to have these in your collection. Especially, I think, particularly the Let Go album one is really cool. And it's part of a series that the Funko Pop company does with albums. It's like an album series that they do, because like normally the Funko Pops, they're just these little vinyl figures. But with the album collection, what they did was they made the Funko Pop that looks like the album cover kind of, and then it has the actual, like, a big printout of the album cover behind it in this big case kind of, because like the way that the Funko Pops are normally packaged is that they normally come in a box, but you can definitely take them out of the box if you want. Whereas these ones with the album covers are meant to, like, they're in these plastic cases. So even if you take it out of the box, it's still in this collectible case that it kind of sits in. And I just think it's such a cool thing to have, like, especially because I've mentioned many times before how Let Go is not only my favorite album by Avril, but it's my favorite album of all time. And so I think just to have like a Funko Pop or like a little figure commemorating that is such a cool thing to have. I mean, if you had told me 20 years ago when I was a little girl listening to that album every single day, like wearing out that CD, wearing out the album booklet from how many times I played that album day after day after day, coming home from school every day, putting that record on and memorizing all of the lyrics. If you had told me that someday there would be like a little figure, kind of like a collectible figure thing commemorating that, that, you know, I mean, that's just such a cool, like, how many albums have that? And how many people can say that, like, they have that sort of thing for their favorite album by their favorite artist, you know? So it's just such a cool thing to have. And the Skater Boy one is cute as well. And I certainly hope that they do more of them. Like, I was waiting for them to come out with Avril Funko Pops because I just thought they've done so many celebrities and I was just waiting for them to come out with Avril ones. And I hope that they do some more in the future, maybe like her other album looks like maybe a My Happy Ending inspired one or a Girlfriend inspired one. In addition to the Funko Pops, my husband also got me a copy of the Greatest Hits CD. It's just such a cool thing to have. Again, like, it's like, I think if you're just an Avril fan or an Avril collector, it completes your collection. Like, especially people who are, if you're a collector but you're like a completist collector, if you have a copy of all of her albums, you kind of have to also have a copy of the Greatest Hits just to make the collection complete. Especially if you've been a fan since the very beginning. I think it's like just sort of a full circle moment to have the Greatest Hits CD from the artists that you've been following since the very beginning. Like, I think even if you're not necessarily going to listen to it much or pop it in your CD player or anything like that, because, you know, most music is streamed nowadays digitally, I think it's just kind of nice it's always nice to have physical parts of media because, you know, like, everything is so digital now. And so I think it's nice to have something that you can hold in your hands and like look through the booklet and just to see all of her songs. I mean, we know it's not every single from over the years. Like, there are a few that are missing, but most of her singles compiled into one album like this, it kind of really does show the career that she's built. And I'm sure that she's really proud of that, to see like all of her songs kind of assembled into one compilation. And it's an achievement, truly, to be able to make to have enough songs from over the years to even make a Greatest Hits, like to warrant making a Greatest Hits album, is certainly something to be celebrated. And so I think, like, certainly if you're an Avril fan or an Avril collector and you have all of her albums, just like kind of adding this one to the collection just completes it. I wouldn't call myself an Avril collector, but I do have quite a few. Like, I certainly have a copy of every single album on CD, and I have like some of her tour DVDs and those kinds of things. So I wouldn't really call myself a collector, but I do have some of her stuff, of course. And so having this as part of my collection, I think, just kind of helps it feel more complete. So in addition to my husband getting me the Funko Pops and the Greatest Hits CD as part of my birthday present, what we also did to celebrate was we watched her set at the Pink Pop Festival, and I thought she did phenomenally. We don't often get high quality recordings of some of her performances lately, and so it's always really nice to have like these HD live streams of her performances. And I just thought vocally she was so on point that day. And the set list was like pretty solid. Like, it was, you know, she hit on all the major songs that she should play. And like her energy, I think her energy was like fine, but she was delivering vocally really, really well. So I was like fine that maybe because I think that was, I want to say that might have been the show where it was like cold and raining and she just came out in like a hoodie and stuff. So it was like a little bit different than her other shows, and maybe she just didn't have as much energy to devote to the show because it was really cold and raining. But I still thought she knocked it out of the park vocally. So it's like, I'm fine, you know, if she doesn't necessarily, she's not always like jumping up and down and that kind of thing. If she's not delivering as much on the energy, but she comes out like in full force with those vocals. I'm particularly obsessed with the way that she sang the note in I'm With You when she does the second verse leading into the chorus where she's like, won't somebody come take me home? And she does this vocal run, and I'm just like absolutely obsessed with the way that she hit that note. I've talked before on here about how I took vocal lessons for a couple of years, like many years ago, and I myself, you know, like to sing as a hobby and that kind of thing. And so I really pay attention to these things, like maybe more so than the average person does, but I pay really close attention to when artists perform, and I pay attention to all the little nuances that they do in their vocal performance, the technique that they're using, how they're hitting these notes and that kind of thing. Like I really like keep an ear out for the tone and the color that they use in their voice and all these, like the texture in their voice and all these things. And like just the way that she hits that note in that particular performance of I'm With You. I was just so obsessed with it. I kept going back and playing it over and over. And I just like was in awe of how she was hitting that note, just the particular way that she chose to do it. So yeah, I thought her performance at Pink Pop was really, really solid. And if you haven't checked it out, I would absolutely recommend going to check it out. So it was really nice to get to celebrate my birthday, like with, you know, it's like Avril is my favorite artist. I've loved her since I was a little girl. I still do, obviously. And so like getting some of her things as like presents and then watching one of her concerts, like I couldn't think of a better way, honestly, to celebrate my birthday. Like short of going to see her in concert, which I will be in August, but like short of going to see her like in concert, I guess, in person, this was like a pretty solid way to celebrate my birthday. So speaking of the Greatest Hits album, I did end up listening to it like the day that it came out. It took me a few days to get through all the songs because I would get like constantly interrupted and kind of have to stop and then start again another time. It took me a few days to stream through the full Greatest Hits album, but I did like actually go through and listen to it. And I just kind of wanted to run through some of my opinions on some of the songs after re-listening to them because truthfully, I haven't really listened to much of Avril lately. Every so often I'll like play her, you know, I'll kind of like put her music on shuffle and just kind of play, like I won't play through any particular album, but maybe I'll just put some of her stuff on shuffle, like just to have some background music, or if I just feel in the mood to listen to her, maybe I'll listen to the B-sides or something like that. But you know, she hasn't put out new music in a couple of years really, and so I just haven't felt like particularly inclined to play through like the old stuff that I've heard a bunch of times. Just some of these songs, if you haven't heard them for a while and then you listen to them again, you kind of rediscover certain things about them. And you're kind of like, oh, this song is like, you know, I kind of have forgotten how good this song is. Or, you know, maybe sometimes your opinions change on songs or songs grow on you. Or maybe you're like, you know, I used to really like this song, but maybe I've heard it too many times by now, that kind of thing. And I've never really talked about my opinions on her older music here. Like I did an album review when Love Sucks came out because that was new, or like anytime she's dropped something new like Eyes Wide Shut or the Mod Sun collabs or Fake as Hell, anytime Bulletproof, anytime that she's put out something new, I've reviewed it here, but I've never gone back and talked about my thoughts on her previous music because I think it just kind of felt like it wasn't relevant. Like I'm sure, you know, maybe some people might be interested to know what I think about her previous albums. And if people want me to do episodes talking about like kind of going through her previous albums, I'm more than happy to do that. But I think to me, it just kind of felt like it wasn't particularly relevant because it's not anything current. So I kind of thought this might be a good opportunity for me to run through some of these previous songs that I've never talked about before and just say like the thoughts that came to me while I was re-listening to them and kind of just share my thoughts on some of these older songs of hers. So I'm not going to share my thoughts on every single song just because that's like 20 songs. And I didn't have thoughts on every single song. Like there were some that I'm like, oh yeah, there's Skater Boy again, or there's Girlfriend again, or whatever. But these are just the ones that I, like there was something that really stood out to me about them that I want to share. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Complicated, which, I mean, obviously it's one of her most iconic songs. So I think I probably have mentioned before that Complicated is not just my favorite track on Let Go, but it's my favorite track, all-time favorite track of hers. And it's my favorite song of all time from any artist. probably because it's my favorite from her. But this was like definitely one of the earliest pop songs I remember listening to. I mean, I think like 8. I want to say like 8, about to turn 9 when this song came out in 2002. So when you're that age and you're listening to top 40 pop radio, your tastes are being influenced like pretty early on at that age. And I definitely remember when this song was on the radio, and I remember the first time I heard it and I just thought, wow, like I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what the song was. I didn't know who the artist was. I just knew, I was like, wow, that was a cool song. And then obviously at some point later, I discovered it again and like realized, the proper name of it and who the artist was. And like, to me, like every time I hear the song, like I never get sick of this song. Like I think I mentioned I played it during the reception at my wedding. I never get sick of hearing the song. Like, every time I play through the Let Go album, I always love when it comes on. Or like if it's, I'm playing music on shuffle and it comes on. Even though this song is 22 years old at this point, it's still a banger. It's like, I think what I think about Complicated as a song, not just like in the context of Avril's catalog, but just how I feel about Complicated as a song in general, is that I would describe it as a pop gem. Like I think Lauren Christie and the rest of the Matrix did such a phenomenal job when they wrote this song. The melody that they came up with for this song, and obviously it was so different for its time too. I think that's what really makes it so iconic and like such a staple of the early 2000s pop music, is that it was so different, so against the grain for its time. I mean, because as we know, those of us who were around at that time, in the early 2000s, you had the Britney Spearses of the world, the Christina Aguileras, the NSYNCs, the Backstreet Boys. Like you had those kinds of bubblegum pop, Max Martin produced types of songs that all kind of sounded more or less like similar because they were all written and produced by the same people. It was all very kind of sort of like factory produced, like for lack of a better term. It was very like formulaic, I guess you could say. And then here comes Avril, this teenager out of Canada who's like wearing a tie and baggy skater pants. And she's very angsty. She's got this angsty, like guitar driven pop rock song about like, why'd you got to make things complicated, that type of thing. It was so different for its time. And that's like what really got people's attention about her. And I mean, it certainly got my attention. And, it resonated with people then, and it still resonates with people now. Like every time, you'll hear it still played on the radio and stuff today. And like every time I hear it, I'm just like out in public or something, and I hear it come on the radio, like it just always fills me with such joy hearing that song because it's my favorite song. But like, I mean, like I said, I think it's like, it was iconic for its time, and I think it's still iconic, even more iconic maybe now. And it was a great song then. It's still a great song now, because sometimes you'll listen to songs from that era and you'll hear it now and you're like, oh, that sounds like so outdated. Like the production is very of its time, or maybe like the topic or the lyrics or something don't necessarily age the best or something like that. But I think Complicated, it was a phenomenal song then. It's still a phenomenal song now. And this will always forever be one of my favorites. The next one I wanted to talk about is Don't Tell Me. So going from the lead single of Let Go to now the lead single of Under My Skin. So I wouldn't say Don't Tell Me is like necessarily super up there for me amongst my favorite Avril songs. Like I really like the song, but I wouldn't say I'm like super passionate about it the way that I am with, say, Complicated. But I had a thought while listening to Don't Tell Me. I think while listening to it, I just thought to myself, this was such an important song to come out for its time. I mean, you think back to 2004, and it kind of goes along with what I was saying before about with when Complicated came out, which was only a couple of years before, but it was still following that same time period of like, we had the Britneys and the Christinas doing certainly more like promiscuous songs in pop music. That was pretty much what pop music was filled with at the time. We saw the emergence of more pop rock leaning artists because of Avril. Like she kind of ushered in a new wave of female artists like Hilary Duff. Kelly Clarkson was leaning more into guitar-driven music, Ashlee Simpson, those kinds of artists. So, the tides were changing, but what dominated pop music then was these kind of like more sexual or sexually suggestive kinds of songs. And so I think for a song like this to come out at that time was really not only just like a brave move, but it was really important. It was such an important message, and still is an important message for young girls. I mean, for girls and boys, but the song was clearly more targeted towards girls. And that's kind of what Avril always said, is that she considered it like her girl power anthem, and she would always dedicate it to the girls in the audience. And it's a topic that's more relevant than ever. And I think Avril was almost like even ahead of her time by talking about this subject, about, consent and those kinds of things, not feeling pressured into doing anything you're not comfortable with, like sexually or otherwise. She was really brave and ahead of her time to talk about it then. Because, that wasn't really like a top, like I said, in this era where pop music was very much the opposite. It was very much about like very sexually provocative kinds of songs. And so for a song in pop music to go against that message and to say, hey, actually, it's okay if you're not comfortable doing that. And obviously now, fast forward 20 years later, we're having more conversations about this type of thing since the Me Too movement and things like that, talking about how important consent is, empowering girls and women that, they don't have to do things that they're not comfortable with. So I just wanted to I just had that thought while listening to Don't Tell Me that I'm like, it kind of hit me. I was like, wow. I don't know if I would say like a pioneering song for its time, but almost. Like I think it was such a trailblazer moment that she put out a song like this in a time like that, and how like its message resonates more than ever today. The next song that I'm going to talk about is I'm a Mess, which is jumping all the way from Under My Skin to now her most recent record, Love Sucks. Whenever I hear this song, like it's still a favorite for me from her last album. Like there's quite a few songs from her last album that I like, but I'm a Mess is one that like when I hear it, it's such a different kind of song to do for her to do from Love Sucks, because Love Sucks was so fast paced and up tempo, and I'm a Mess is more of a ballad and more mid tempo. So, and obviously it's a feature, and so that kind of makes it different, kind of makes it stand out on the record. And the thing that I really like about it is how much it sounds like her older music. Like I can't really explain it, but I think people who are super familiar with her catalog might know what I mean, that it really calls to mind kind of like her Under My Skin, The Best Damn Thing era ballads, I think. I can't describe what it is about it that makes me think of her older music, but maybe it's just like the structure of it, the musical structure, the fact that it's a mid-tempo ballad, the production, I think might have a lot to do with it. But there's something about it that just really makes me think about, it just sounds like a really classic old school Avril ballad. And I think that's why I really like it a lot. I think anybody who was a fan of Avril back in the day would really, really enjoy this song because of that. And of course, that bridge is incredible with like her and Youngblood's voices together and those big high notes that she does. It's such an excellent example showing off her vocal abilities. And I also really like the meaning of the song. I talked about this when the song initially came out. I did an episode where I went through the Love Sucks Deluxe tracks, and I mentioned that I really like the meaning of the song because I think they meant it to be like a breakup song, like I'm a mess when we're not together and, I miss you and that kind of thing. But to me, I had kind of interpreted it as like it could also be about losing somebody through other ways, like even if they just move away. But to me, I also kind of have always thought the song could also be applied to losing somebody through death, which I think kind of deepens the meaning, but beyond just like a typical breakup song. And I think that's kind of the genius of that song. And that's always been the genius of Avril's lyricism and of her music, is that her songs are pretty open to interpretation. And sometimes people have criticized that, myself included, where sometimes her lyrics are so vague that we don't necessarily know who it's about or what it's about. It's a little maybe too open to interpretation. But then sometimes in examples like this, it works really, really well, where it's kind of up to the listener's interpretation, what situation in their life they want to apply it to. And so I think that's kind of the genius of I'm a Mess, is that it can have so many different meanings and so many different interpretations. The next track that I want to talk about is Losing Grip. So going back to Let Go, I think this is still a great, solid rock song from Avril's catalog. Obviously, she explored more heavy rock-inspired music from the Under My Skin era onwards. But this was like a really early showing of her, like what she could do with rock music. I've always really liked the production on this one. It's very like Alanis Morissette, and I think that was probably done on purpose. Like we know she was a big Alanis fan growing up, and like the fact that they even performed it together at one point, it's definitely got that very Alanis kind of style about it, and the vocal wailing that she does on it, especially when she sings it live and like in the chorus and stuff, it's got that super like kind of like these wailing vocals. I really like the production on it, especially during the bridge. They do these cool kind of like vocal effects with it and stuff. And just the way that it builds like instrumentally and the guitars go super heavy after the bridge into the final choruses. We know that this has always been one of Avril's favorite songs, especially from Let Go, and the fact that she's still performing it live. Like, I think it came back on the set list by popular demand. She's kind of rotated it in and out of her set list over the last few years. She's kind of like brought it back and then removed it from the set list and then brought it back again. But the fans always respond really, really well when she performs this live and when she includes it in her set list. And so I'm glad that she has added it permanently to the greatest hits to her set list, because it's been going down live really well. And her voice always shines when she sings the song. Like, I think this song is just built for her voice, and it allows her to kind of show, like, we know she can sing the ballads really well and stuff, but this gives her voice a chance to shine in a different way than some of her other songs do. Next, we have Bite Me. So going back to Love Sucks Now, I think Bite Me is still a good song. It's a really strong lead single from her later catalog. So, like, you know, obviously the greatest hits is stacked with a lot of singles from her first like 3 records are where like her bread and butter really is. That's like where the majority of her big songs came from, was those first 3 records. And so to have a song like Bite Me in the mix, it kind of just shows that, yes, she's primarily known for the golden singles from those first 3 records, but to have something from her latest album shows that she can still deliver on strong songs and that she's still pulling out hits and good songs later in her career, and that she's not just like a has-been, or that like, oh, she's reached her peak already. I mean, she has in a sense reached her peak, but like the fact that she is still delivering good singles, like good strong songs this far in her career, shows like that she has staying power as an artist. Next, we have to talk about I'm With You, because this is a classic, iconic song, not just from the Let Go album, but across her entire catalog. Every fan knows this song. Every fan waits for this moment in her concerts. She, more often than not, ends her concert set lists with this song. It's always like a big, special sing-along moment, put up your phone lighters in the crowd moment with this song. You can tell it's her favorite part of the show. Like, she's always talked about how this is her favorite song and it's her favorite one to perform live. And the fact that she like kind of has that moment where she asks the crowd to sing the chorus a few times with her, like she's kind of like dragging it out because she likes when the crowd sings it back to her. I think that just shows how much she loves it and how special that moment is to her to have the crowd singing those words back to her. I love the story of how this song came to be, where it's like, I mean, some of the best songs that artists write are born out of these moments where they're like at their lowest or some situation happens. She was just having a bad day. Like, she was just feeling like down in the dumps, like we all have those days. And she wrote a song about it, and it ended up producing one of her best songs. I think when you listen to the studio version of this song, it just has such a great emotional buildup, like especially when she hits those really big notes in the bridge and the final choruses. I mean, even if you're not an Avril fan, like I feel like anybody, if you just turn on this song and you listen to it, you come away being like, wow, that was like an incredible song. Like, I mean, obviously, you know, it's well written, it's well produced, it's well sung, and it makes you feel something when you listen to it. Like, I feel like nobody can listen to this song and not come away feeling moved in some way from having listened to it. So next we go back to Love Sucks with Boys Lie. And I know this is kind of like a mixed reaction song in the fandom. Like, some people really like it, some people really hate it. Some people are like, why is this on the greatest hits? Because it's not really a greatest hits. But I think they just want to include it because they want to include as many Love Sucks songs as they could to like get people to want to check out her latest album and show that she is still putting out new music and stuff. So I get why it was included. Personally, my thoughts on it, I still like the song. It's still a favorite of mine from the Love Sucks album. And like, I just think it's really catchy. Like, you know, regardless of how you feel about the song or how you feel about MGK being on it, like, I think you have to admit it's an earworm, and it's just like one of the catchiest hooks I think she's ever written. And that's personally what I like about it. Getting down to the last few songs here, next we have Here's to Never Growing Up, which I kind of have a funny story about that. So when this song first came out, I wasn't really a big fan of it because I thought it was too pop, it was too overproduced, and it was kind of like just another rehash of some of her previous more like bratty kinds of pop songs like Girlfriend and What the Hell. It was like another one of those. And so I wasn't like a super big fan of it at first, but then I think over time, the song has definitely grown on me over the years to the point that now I really enjoy listening to it. Like, yeah, I think it's still like a little too pop for her and maybe a little too overproduced, a little too auto-tuned, that kind of thing. But it's just like a really good, catchy pop song. Like sometimes you just need that. Sometimes you just need a really good, catchy pop song. And that's exactly what this is. And I will say, I mean, especially because she has been performing it more on her like last few tours. She has been including, like, I don't know if she really liked performing it so much when it first came out. And then the more that she's been doing these greatest hits kinds of tours and including it on her tours, I think she has kind of grown to like it more as well. So with it being part of the greatest hits tour set list, every time I hear it now, it's almost like weirdly nostalgic when I hear it, which is weird. Because if you think about it, the song came out over 10 years ago by this point. And I think the reason why it feels nostalgic to me is because, first of all, it's so old. Like, it's hard to believe that it is as old as it is, because 2013 doesn't really feel that long ago, and yet it is so long ago. And I think also because it was a totally different era. Like, I mean, not just in Avril's career, but like it was a different era in general. Like, it was before she got sick with Lyme disease. It was before COVID happened. And obviously that completely changed the world, like, permanently. So it was just a completely different time. It was a different time in culture, with technology, all these different aspects of life. It was just a completely different time, a different era. And I think that's what makes me feel kind of weirdly nostalgic when I listen to it, is just because it was from sort of a bygone era, I guess you could say. Okay, so moving on to an album that I haven't touched on yet, which is The Best Damn Thing, to talk about Keep Holding On. I have always loved Keep Holding On. I think it's one of her best songs, like not just on the Best Damn Thing album, but in general, I think it's one of her best ballads. And I've always really liked the meaning. I've always found this song to be inspiring, because we all go through things where we're going through tough times, and sometimes we just feel almost like we're drowning or something. And I think just having this song to kind of pull you through, like, you know, keep holding on because you know we'll make it through. I think sometimes you just need that reminder that, you know, things will get better and that you will come out the other side during tough times. And so I just really appreciate her having a song like this. And to kind of go along with that, to finish off my list here, finishing with Head Above Water, which has a very similar theme. I also still love this one. I have always loved the lyrics. I've always thought it was like one of her strongest lyrically written songs. And I've always loved the meaning because, you know, it's a song about strength. And as someone who's Catholic, to have a more faith-based kind of song from her it's really nice to have that connection, because obviously most of her songs don't have that theme, but it's really nice for me to have that kind of connection to her songs. And I think it's such a powerful song. And even if you don't connect to the faith part of it, I think it can still help you if you're going through a hard time. And I even like say this to myself all the time when I'm going through something that's difficult and I really just need kind of like a mantra or a moment of strength. I'll say to myself, God, please help me keep my head above the water. Like, I will use that. I had never actually heard that saying before. I don't think Avril invented that phrase. I think that's just been a phrase. Like, keeping your head above water has always been a common phrase. But I had never heard it before. That was like the first time I ever heard it was through this song. And so now that I have heard this phrase, I will incorporate it into my life all the time, where it's like, you know, it's almost like a prayer for me. And I think that's how she meant it, was to kind of be a prayer, because that's how it started for her, was herself going through a difficult time and leaning on her faith in that moment and saying, God, help me keep my head above the water. And so now, I mean, if I'm doing it, I imagine a lot of other people probably are as well. And so the fact that it started as like a prayer for her when she was going through a hard time, she was going through like a really difficult thing in her life, that has now become like a prayer for her fans who are also going through something, is so powerful. And I think really shows her, not just her impact as an artist, but it shows that she's meant to be doing this. This shows that this is her purpose in life, is to make music that, you know, is a reflection of what she's going through, that can then help others going through similar things. I think it was a really interesting choice to end the Greatest Hits album with this song, but I think it was a very deliberate choice. I think it was a very poignant decision to end the album with this song, because it's clearly very important to her. The fact that she always starts the encore section of her shows with this song. I think she, in a lot of ways, has said, like, I feel like she's even said this song has kind of saved her life in a way, because it was what pulled her through getting through Lyme. Having this song to kind of lean on and help her, you know, it kind of like gave her a focus when she was going through that time. And so I think that this song is probably more special to her than maybe she's let on. And I think that's why she probably wanted to tack it on at the end here. And I think that it will forever always be a very special song to her because of what it personally means to her. Okay, so shifting away from the greatest hits onto some of these other latest activities with her, I want to briefly give my thoughts on her looks for Paris Fashion Week. So I know we're all a little traumatized from the previous Paris Fashion Week, but luckily nothing like that happened this time around. She just showed up right from Germany and did the thing and went back on tour. So it was very in and out. So my thoughts about the actual looks themselves, I didn't like the first one at all. I know the point of doing these fashion weeks is that the looks are supposed to be really like avant-garde, really fashion forward, really out there and experimental. And that's what she likes about it. I just did not like the first look at all. It was too weird, too out there. I feel like they never exactly know how to dress her. Like they always put her in something that doesn't flatter her very well. And I just thought like what they chose for her didn't suit her. So was not a fan of that look. Her second one was okay. It was definitely like suited her better, but it was just kind of like, it still wasn't really her style that she's known for. But I will say, in contrast to those two looks, I absolutely loved her purple and black look for Elie Saab. I think it's not only her best Fashion Week look from this particular Fashion Week or any Fashion Week that she's done. I think it's honestly, it rose through the ranks as being one of my all-time favorite looks from her because I just thought it was such a cool look for her. And I wish that she would wear stuff like that more often. Like it was so her with the purple and black and like this black button-down shirt and like the bell bottoms and stuff and the boots. Just having that purple and the purple makeup that complemented it. If she wore more stuff like that, it's kind of like it is her style, but it's elevated and it's a little more kind of like artisty looking, like very like Lainey Wilson kind of inspired or something. I just thought it kind of took her look and her style that she's known for to a whole other level. I would be so up for her wearing more stuff like that, but that definitely shot up for me as being one of my all-time favorite looks from her. I thought like the styling and the silhouette on it, the length of it all suited her so well. And that purple color, like fans have been wanting her to do purple for an album cycle for a while now. I just thought it was such a cool look. It was so her, but like very sophisticated and just very, very like cool. And it looks effortless, even though it very much wasn't effortless, but it looks effortless. So I was a big fan of that look. And to go along with that, her new looks, new styles, she recently dyed her hair like this bubblegum pink. Not the whole head of hair, but like definitely more than she's done. Like, you know, over the years, we know that she's done like the streaks in her hair, like in the ends of her hair, she's done streaks. But she's done like so much more of her hair this time around with pretty much like other than the top of her head, from like the middle of her hair all the way down, this bubblegum pink color. And I actually really love it. I think it looks really good on her. And we know that pink is her signature color. And like, yeah, she's done pink hair before. And I guess she just decided kind of on a whim. She just wanted to do it because we know she's kind of spontaneous like that with her hair. Like she gets bored and she wants to change it up. So I don't think it means that necessarily that like a new era is on the way or anything like that. Because sometimes people think that like when she changes her hair up, that it means that something new is on the way to kind of like symbolize the start of a new era. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily why she did it. But just in general, I think it looks great on her and I really like it. And I think it's just something that kind of like freshens up her look a little bit because obviously during the Love Sucks era, she went with the orange a lot. So just to have her change it up, I think just keeps things interesting. The next thing I want to talk about is her appointment to the Order of Canada. When I saw that news, I was like, wow, that is, I mean, what an honor that is and a huge accomplishment to be awarded with something like that. There was an article I read where she said that she had called her parents and they were really proud of her. I mean, that's such a cool thing that obviously not every Canadian person necessarily gets that honor. I just think it's so awesome that like since the 20th anniversary of her time in music, that she's been getting all these kinds of honors and accolades and that kind of thing. The fact that she's getting all this kind of recognition and stuff, I think it's just like well overdue at this point. I had kind of said this in previous episodes, but, you know, we as the fans have always known that she was talented and deserving to be where she is. And she was just as worthy of being on the stage as anybody else. But for some reason, she was never always taken very seriously and kind of the butt of the joke sometimes. And so the fact that now that narrative has really flipped in the last few years, where lots of artists talk about her impact and how iconic her early music and her fashion style was, how she's impacting a whole new generation of artists. And so to see her be getting these kinds of honors and accolades and critical reception and that kind of thing, it's just like so overdue and so well earned. And I'm so happy for her that she's getting the recognition that she deserves. And so to be part of the Order of Canada, that is such a special, rare achievement that, like I said, not every Canadian person gets to get that. I think that's just a true testament to how iconic she is, how integrated she is with Canadian culture, and how much attention she's brought to Canadian culture. Like she, from the very beginning, day one of her career, she would always talk about, being from Napanee, this very small town in Canada. And because of that, she, like lots of people from around the world would go and visit there and want to check out her hometown and stuff. And so she really kind of, in a way, helped put that very small town of Napanee on the map. Like most people had probably never heard of it before. And it just shows that she's so intertwined with Canadian culture. And so she absolutely 100% deserves this award. Okay, so the last thing that I would like to talk about before I wrap this up is just general commentary on her recent festival run. So my first thing that I wanted to talk about is I think it's a little strange that she's been incorporating covers for a Greatest Hits tour. She's either been bringing out special guests to do the Sum 41 song or the Simple Plan song or All the Small Things again. I get that it's like, because like Sum 41 happened to be at the same show as her, or Simple Plan happens to be the same show as her. These are her friends. And so she wants to bring them on stage and kind of have a cool little moment together and do one of their songs. And I mean, I think that's, in a way, that's really cool of her because it shows how gracious of a performer she is, that she wants to highlight and spotlight somebody that she's, friends with and perform one of their songs, and not one of her songs but one of their songs. So that shows that she's a really gracious performer and a good friend. I just think it's a little odd. Like, it's an odd choice for a Greatest Hits tour, but then in the middle of it she's doing someone else's song. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to make that point. However, to go along with that, I will say that I have a prediction that I think, so like with the first leg of the Greatest Hits tour in North America, All Time Low was one of the opening acts, and they came out in the middle of her set to do their song Fake as Hell. But now for the second leg of the North American tour, Simple Plan is going to be replacing their slot on the tour as an opener. And so I was kind of wondering, what are they going to do? Like, instead of Fake as Hell, are they going to replace that part of the show with something else? Or is she just going to add another one of her own songs there? Like, how are they going to cover that part of the show without All Time Low being there? So now that we have seen consistently, she'll bring out Simple Plan to do Addicted whenever they're performing together. I feel like that is probably what they're going to do for the dates that Simple Plan is joining her. So that's just my prediction. That I just wanted to throw that out there, and we can come back to this episode in a couple of weeks and see if I turned out to be correct. I also just wanted to give a brief comment about her set at Glastonbury, because Glastonbury is a very huge, iconic music festival, and I guess it used to be maybe more exclusive than it is now, but it took her 22 years to get there. And I'm so happy that her set was well received, because I think some people were a little nervous, like, oh no, if she's not on top of her game that day, she's going to get ripped to shreds. And so I think some people were nervous, especially because that was one of the festivals that was live streamed. So more people were going to be seeing it. And I'm so happy that she really delivered. Like, I think she probably knew that. Like, she probably knew this is a really big festival and I really need to be on my A game that day. Thank goodness she was, because she really delivered. And I'm so happy that, like, not only the people in attendance, like not just Avril's own fans, but I think the general audience was really, really receptive to her performance. And she got really strong rave critic reviews, which doesn't always happen for her. And I think it's really telling that 70,000 people was the capacity for it. She was not playing the main stage. She was playing the secondary stage. And I think it's really telling that the capacity for that stage is 70,000 people. And not only she was playing to that many people, but they actually ended up reaching capacity. And like, people apparently were so far back into the campground part, and more people wanted to show up, and they had to actually turn people away because there were so many people and they had reached capacity. I think that's just so telling that, like, I don't know if Avril gets to negotiate what stage she plays on and she opted to do the secondary stage, or or if they thought, we don't know what kind of a crowd she's going to draw, so we're going to put her on the smaller stage. But I think it really shows how many people underestimated what kind of an audience she can still pull in 22 years later. And, the fact that she had such a warm reception, and that her set was really well received, and people are apparently still talking about how great it was. And it was so amazing to see all these articles come out with these headlines about how, she was playing to well over capacity, basically. I don't know that we ever thought we'd see her reach those kinds of heights again. And it's incredible that after this long, that she's still pulling in an audience of that size and more. She doesn't even have enough to accommodate that many people. And so I think it not only goes to show that she is worthy of being able to play the main stage next year, but I think it also is, once again, a testament to her legacy as an artist at this point that, for whatever reason, years ago, people kind of wrote her off, I think. And for whatever reason now, people are more appreciative of her and her success. I don't know exactly what kind of made people change their minds on that, or what kind of made that narrative flip, but I'm glad that it did. And I think she absolutely deserves it. And it's really a special thing to be part of an artist's kind of career in that way. Been supporting her since day one, and to see her go all the way from the beginning to where she is now, supporting her every single album and doing whatever we all can do in different ways to support her, showing up to the shows and that kind of thing, going with her through the good and the bad, the positive and the negative, sticking with her through the years, through the decades, introducing her music to even our own kids at this point, bringing them to the concerts. The fact that she's inspiring a new generation of artists, the fact that she is, her songs still make best of lists, and that people are still enjoying her music all these years later, and that she has built this kind of legacy. She has built this kind of solid catalog for herself. I think it's just a really special thing to get to be part of something like that, even just in a small way, but just to get to be part of an artist's career like that. And it's really fulfilling to get to watch them from all the way from the beginning to now and be I was there at the start of it all, and I've been there since the beginning. So I think, her set at Glastonbury just kind of is a testament to that, and just goes to show that the fact that she can pull in 70,000 people and more this far in, shows that she, people recognize that she is as iconic as we have always known her to be. So that's all the time we have for this edition of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you can get new episodes directly in your feed. And please take a minute to leave a rating or review to help more fans find the show. We're currently streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Audible. And you can also find me on Instagram at BestDamnAvrilPod to keep up with the latest podcast news. Join me again next time on the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. The Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Andrea DiFrancesco. Theme music is HD and Lights by J. Powell Flicks. Follow the latest podcast news on Instagram at BestDamnAvrilPod or email bestdamnavrilpod@yahoo.com.